Chicago, Green Bay, New York, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, and make memories with fellow Irish NFL fans on the trip of a lifetime. We've partnered with Bernard Hayes Travel, a trusted travel partner with over 30 years' experience. We look after everything: flights, accommodation, transfers, match tickets, social events, and everything in between. An unforgettable experience. Picture yourself in the stands at Soldier Field, Lambeau, or MetLife, roaring on your team. Register your interest today at irishnflshow.com/tours. Don't just watch the game, live it. Welcome to the Irish NFL Show's live Week 16 recap. Well, 'twas the last football weekend before Christmas, and all through the house, teams were either playing for playoffs or just pride. This stage of the season always throws up some fun and bizarre scenarios. Both Bears and Packers fans, for instance, found themselves rooting for Aaron Rodgers last night. The 49ers clinched a playoff berth without even playing a game, and the Jags could clinch if those same 49ers beat the Colts in Monday Night Football, which at the time we're live here, or if you're listening back to us on the recording, at the time we're recording, is about to happen in a couple of hours' time. Let us start our Week 16 recap, though, with that Steelers-Lions game, which had a crazy ending. Brian O'Leary and Kieran Boyle here with me, Conor Brophy, to pick up on all of those talking points from over the weekend. Kieran Boyle, I hate to start with officiating, but the ending to this Lions-Steelers game, in which the Lions were second best for most of the game, were in position to win the game and looked like they had, in fact, won the game until offensive pass interference, a little called penalty, ends up changing the whole ending to that game. And also one of the funniest, though not for Lions fans in the stadium, ways for an official to break the bad news. He starts off, you don't lead with, the ruling on the field is a touchdown, and the crowd goes nuts. But by the way, it's not a touchdown. Oh, just, you want to reorder your script there, my friend, because you're not going to get out of Ford Field in one piece. Breaking the news to the Lions fans like that. But the whole offensive pass interference thing, and I don't know what your view on it here is, I thought it was the correct call, but we never can see that thing called, right? It's just not a penalty that's ever called. No. And either they're going to consistently call it every week. It shouldn't change from officiating crew to officiating crew. And we've seen that all this season with the tush push. One crew referees it one way, another crew referees it another way. All we're looking for is consistency here. I'm not saying take all the judgment out of the referees' hands, but unless we're seeing OPI being called week in, week out when receivers do it, which they do all the time, then how can you let a game that big with the stakes so high come down to that? A guy just decides randomly to throw a flag. Sorry, that's not fair. Not randomly to throw a flag. But why are we bringing offensive pass interference into the question right now? It brings up that horrible trope, which I think we all hate for me, which is officials wanting to grab the limelight for themselves in a big spot.
Yeah, I think if you did a lie detector test with the officials, I mean, they'd probably tell you they'd want to do a redo of the last 10, 15 seconds of that game. I mean, everything they said, everything the referee said was just, that thing where words come out of your mouth and you want to put it back in. I mean, he made an absolute balls of that, literally. It's the whole sequence was just bizarre. And you're right. I mean, there's so many calls. I mean, we could have a separate conversation about, officiating and what's a good call and what's a bad call. And, I've always thought with the NFL that there's too many rules and they get too deep in the weeds with a lot of things. They overcomplicate things a lot. But again, that's another conversation for another day, and it's not going to get resolved in this podcast. But it just shows the inconsistency from ref crew to ref crew. It's something that I'm sure the NFL is losing their mind about. That's not the outcome they wanted last night. They wanted to be a clear-cut win for the Steelers and something that wasn't put in doubt by a couple of lines or a couple of phrases from a referee. But yeah, I mean, unfortunately, that whole sequence took away from what was a pretty great game. Obviously, we know when the Lions are involved, it's going to be an offensive slugfest. And who knew the Steelers would get involved with it too? I mean, from the get go, I mean, it was just we say it all the time, just a slugfest and the slobber knockers. And I honestly, God, didn't think that the Steelers were going to be able to keep pace. I thought the Lions were going to come out the traps, put up 35-40. And deal with the deficiencies they have on defense, but they would, the Steelers would be kept at bay by their deficiencies on offense. But I don't think they counted on Rodgers throwing for 266. and thrown 41 times for 266 and a couple of one touchdown. But who knew Jaylen Warren was going to run for 143, a guy who's only run over 100 yards once all season. I mean, his stock is 63, 71, 48, and he just went off for 2 touchdowns, and that catch he had as well was pretty spectacular too. Steelers turning it on. I mean, I don't think anybody really saw that either.
Gainwell with the catch, right? It was kind of Gainwell.
Gainwell, I'm sorry, yeah,
and Warren with the 2 runs.
Yes.
Sorry, I wouldn't normally jump in so rudely like that, but put some respect on his name for a grab that, because that is an insane piece of skill in that scenario. I was sure it had hit the ground, but it doesn't, because he makes a sensational grab.
Yeah, I mean, it was just one of those back and forth games. I mean, the Lions just try to keep pace, but I mean, their run game was null and void yesterday. Montgomery had 14 yards on 4 carries. Gibbs 7 carries, 2 yards. I mean, that's not going to happen. That's not going to win you any games. I don't care who you are. And you know, St. Brown barely got above 50 yards too. So the offense just yet didn't get clicking. A couple of big plays on offense to score some touchdowns, but I mean, the story of this game is where this kind of offensive. I know that Rodgers has been great the last couple of weeks. I mean, he's been putting up decent numbers, but I don't think anyone saw it, you know, keeping pace with the Lions and actually getting past the post with the Lions. Steelers win 3 straight now. Rodgers is just he's loving life right now. You saw him at the post game conference or the post game on the field. You know, that was probably a combination of the bizarre happenings a couple of minutes previous. But you know, he's loving life right now. They're winning games. They're 9-6. They got they basically rubber stamped the AFC North at this stage. Lions lose 2 straight for the first time in 3 years, and their stranglehold on the NFC North has been loosened as well. So I think as well with the story with the Steelers, with Warren putting up those numbers, is just the absolute, just that. I mean, I talked about it for a couple of weeks. That Lions, not just the run D, but the secondary, and they just got wiped out yesterday. That's not sustainable having a defense like that. And Campbell can be, he can be licking his chops and just, talking about how they were, hard done by the referees. But, when that defense is giving up that amount of points and those amount of yards, then it's not going to be a good time for anybody. Strange to see the Lions get beat like that at home, but give credit to the Steelers. I mean, I enjoyed watching them. I mean, that was a pretty football game. It wasn't usual. Boswell, a couple of field goals. TJ Watt gets a strip sack for 6, and they slogged to another 19-16 win. But it's looking like the Steelers are going to take the foothold in that division, and that's about it for the Lions. 8-7. It's not going to do it. Not with the juggernauts in the NFC North.
Brian, it seems a lifetime away from the fire Tomlin chants and Steelers fans booing Renegade. That was 2 weeks ago.
It's amazing how a week or a fortnight in the NFL can do for you, Connor. Like, you see it time and time again, fans kind of overreact to certain games and defeats, and then they overreact to when they have some significant wins. I think Kira's right in calling it. It looks like inevitably now they're going to win the division. They're going to get a home game in the playoffs, and like people keep suggesting this team are going down the similar road in which you've seen last year. But like, what did people want? They have to make the playoffs in order to try to advance to the divisional round. If they didn't make the playoffs, Steelers fans would be giving out. You had Steelers fans throughout the course of the season saying it's the same all season. We'll end up in the wild card and we'll get beaten. Well, maybe they won't this time around, because if they win the division, they're going to have a home game. Can I just jump back to that particular drive at the end, Connor? I know you've put it together very well in terms of the analogy of how the game played out, but I was a little bit taken back by some of the play calling on the Lions in particular. And even Jim Nantz actually called it out. And Tony Romo missed the trick. Tony Romo was referring to the previous play when Jim Nantz made the point about they got the first down and they rushed up to get a play off immediately. And he was kind of saying, did they just waste a play there? Because there was no need. There was plenty of time on the clock. They still had a timeout. And then they got a first down, literally 2 or 3 yard line. And that's the Kieran's point, because the run game was so shot all night, which we never see from this Lions team, they actually had an opportunity to even try a draw play with a run, and they got away from that as well, because they knew that hadn't worked all night. And in other games, you have a situation where you've got a great run team, combination of both players, and you're giving yourself a lot of options. Because they couldn't run the ball efficiently last night, they literally had to, they were dictated by throw, and unfortunately, like, this team have been inconsistent over the course of the season. Connor, we probably shouldn't be surprised that they've lost this game. I know a lot of people felt they would, but this team hasn't been the same this year. This team is, we see, year, every year there's a team that are still impacted by that previous playoff game. And I'm not talking about the championship game because we've gone through that time and time again about whether you should have kicked field goals, but more so the fact that they're the 1 seed last year. Everyone assumed that it was going to be the Lions in the championship game. I don't think they've ever really got over that. And then obviously you caveat that by losing offensive
I tend to agree. Like, I think, to your point, the enormity of that defeat was that I don't think anybody in that building, fans, players, coaches, front office, ownership, felt anything other than, oh my God, this is our chance, and we blew it.
Yeah,
we had everything set up the way we wanted. We got the 1 seed. You're playing the Commanders. All we got to do is beat the Commanders, and then we have the NFC Championship game at home. And they just got upended so spectacularly. They got just slapped in the face in their own building. And I think that has cast an enormous shadow.
And we also know that Lions fans, they were disgruntled by the fact that within 24 hours, not even 24 hours, Ben Johnson was confirmed as the Bears head coach. Now, we all knew that was coming as well. And you're a very happy man now, and we're still a very happy man back then. But
praise Jesus.
The Lions fans didn't really get the opportunity to even get over the shock of losing that game, and Ben Johnson was gone. And then people were questioning, was his head turned because he was focused on the job, and his play calling that game wasn't at the same nature as which we've seen over the course of the season. I just think Dan Campbell took back the play calling against the Commanders about 5 or 6 weeks ago, and everyone said, right, we're fine. Dan Campbell knows what he's doing here. But I've been questioning Dan Campbell's play calling for 2 or 3 years, Connor. So it doesn't come as a surprise me when they keep going for 4th downs and they don't get it, and they don't figure out we don't always have to go for it.
Dan Campbell converted his 100th 4th down last night.
He also didn't convert one of 5.
Touchdown to Amon-Ra St. Brown.
He also didn't convert one of 5 in Philadelphia on a Sunday Night Football when that game was a field goal type of game. And if they had been on the right side of that game, they might be still in with an opportunity of making the playoffs. I don't think it's against the realms of possibility they could still make the playoffs. I know Kieran's given up on them, but if you look at where the Packers are, they've got to play the Ravens this weekend. I know the Ravens, Lamar Jackson's questionable now. They struggled. They looked like they had that game won. They gave that one away. I know we're going to come to that, but it isn't against the realms of possibility that if the Packers were to lose that game and the Lions were to win out, there is a scenario where they can still get in. So I don't think it's all gone. It looks very unlikely at this stage, but do you trust them to win those final 2 games? I don't. I certainly don't think they'll win the Soldier Field the way the Bears are playing right now.
No. And the calculus for those games is fascinating as well, right? Because obviously the 49ers play the Colts. The 49ers are confirmed playoff place. They can still win the division and get the 1 seed. The Bears can still win the division and get the 1 seed. The Bears can win the NFC North if they beat the 49ers next week. The 49ers then, if they win, have their hands on their own destiny because they play the Seahawks in the final game and the Bears play the Lions. So like there's any number of ways this whole thing can play out. All those teams are going to be very, very motivated depending on how things go.
I think I've been calling it for about 4 weeks. Connor, 49ers are coming like just under the radar. Keep doing what they're doing, and then all of a sudden they're going to be in a game potentially on Sunday Night Football Sunday week where they're going to play for the 1 seed. And bearing in mind the Super Bowl's in Santa Clara, are we going to see another scenario? Because we have seen it. Well, we had one. We never had one. We had one. Then the following year we had 2. As in, we had the Bucs, the Rams. It's not against the Rams. The possibility the 49ers could be in the Super Bowl representing the NFC in their own stage.
Well, a team that might have something to say about that, Kieran, is the Patriots. They started like a runaway train last week against the Bills. They're up 21-0, and then the Bills shocked them. Flipped the script this week. They let the Ravens jump ahead of them. They were 10-0 in the hole, and it looked like it was all heading Baltimore's way. And then the Patriots came back like a train, finished strongly this week, and they've put the Ravens in some jeopardy. And the reason why the Steelers are feeling so good right now is not only because of their own result in Detroit, but that result on Sunday night then went very much in their favor, and New England is back.
New England is back, and May is back, and God, he's looking real good right now. 380 yards, 2 fourth quarter comebacks, nice little comeback. It looked, I don't want to say it looked ominous, but it looked like the Ravens had caught a little momentum with Henry going in right at the start after, I think it was 2.5 minutes. And the Ravens looked like they were, starting to cook, home crowd, Sunday Night Football, things are looking good. And it was just the May show after that. I mean, 31 of 44. He spread the ball around. They got the run game going nicely. The Ravens kept pace for a little bit. And we saw Zay Flowers get involved as well. But I mean, I don't want to say it always looked like the Pats were going to win this game, but obviously with Lamar going out injured, that was a huge factor in this game.
Sorry, what is it, by the way, with Ravens ball carriers that they just cannot hang on to the pigskin? This is how we started this season with a Derrick Henry fumble that put the Ravens in jeopardy. The Patriots come back into it with the Derrick Henry fumble that puts the Ravens in jeopardy.
Yeah, and and we can talk a little bit later about how Henry never got the ball for the last basically 12, 13 minutes of that game. But yeah, you're right. I mean, it's ball security. There's just something about the Ravens this season. And I thought, just to go off the Patriots real quick, I thought the Ravens, I had picked the Ravens for this game. I thought they were starting to gel. I thought they were starting to get things going. I could see that Flowers was coming more himself into it. Andrews, Lamar, obviously, getting healthy, which is not the case now. But it looks like, at 7-8, it's looking like another lost season for the Ravens. Lamar is listed as day-to-day, but he's got contusions, and who knows what's going to go on there. He's not the bulkiest of quarterbacks, but you'd have to wonder if he's going to be ready for that Green Bay game. But with the Patriots, 2 fourth quarters touchdowns for May. He did what he had to do. He put the team on his back. He's your franchise quarterback. I really wish we had him with the Giants, but thank you, Tommy DeVito. But the Pats just remain a game ahead of Buffalo. They're doing what they need to do. They got the smell of that game from last week out of the environment, it's another nice win for the Pats. Not overly huge amount of numbers. Obviously, May had a really nice game, but there wasn't a huge amount of big numbers for any of the wide receivers. Diggs had a great game, 138 yards, but other than that, Hollins had 69 in the air. We'll say Stevenson had a really nice game on the ground too. But the story for me is it's less about what we always knew the Pats were not cruising, but they were pretty much solid lock for the playoffs. The story for me is more about the Ravens and how it looks like at 7-8, it's another lost season. It's another year with Andrews. It's another year with Zay Flowers. It's another year with Lamar Jackson just underperforming. They had a chance last night with Henry to put, to really put a rubber stamp on this. But like I said, he didn't get the ball for, basically the last quarter. And as much as the Ravens tried to come back, you always thought the Pats were in control. And I don't want to say that the playoffs are poorer without the Ravens, but everyone loves the dynamic nature of how Lamar plays. And especially in January, you want to see those, swashbuckling plays or running around and making plays out of nothing. But, Pats just rubber stamping this division and rubber stamping their authority on not just this game, but also the league right now. I think they're in a great spot. May is playing some great ball. I know he had 2 fumbles, but they weren't really costly when you look at the bigger picture. It's a nice win for the Pats. They, like I said, they remain a game ahead of Buffalo, and everyone's looking great for them right now. Vrabel's got them playing at a great level, and they're probably just going to cruise in the last couple of games of the season. And again, Ravens, disappointing end for them.
Brian, the Bears, Jags, and Patriots between them didn't manage 11 wins last year. Each of those 3 teams now with a new head coach in tow has already won 11 wins, and they all clinched playoff berths at the weekend. This has been a very productive hiring cycle for those 3 teams, and it just goes to show you coaching matters.
You giving me hope for next season already, Conor, are you? This will be the narrative for me and Kieran.
Lane Kiffin gets to New York with the hot yoga.
Look what those teams were able to do with a new up-and-coming head coach. You could argue that, I suppose, these teams have always had the talent there. Maybe not necessarily the Patriots. I know the Patriots done some great work in the offseason. Vrabel brought in a lot of players that... I remember we were discussing it last offseason, just before the season there, on the fact that he kind of took a model similar to the Commanders last year in terms of bringing in players that he knew he'd worked with in Tennessee, players that had been around the league for a period of time, would understand the nature of what he was trying to achieve in New England. He turned around so quickly. I think for me right now, and I've been saying it for weeks, the Jags are a storyline. Have to be one of the storylines of the season, because when you think of where we were in the summer, and you think of Cohn and the press conference and all the slaggers and all the various different social outlets were giving him a terrible time, Pat McAfee show, all that stuff, to where they are, you're watching his locker room.
I do remember saying at the time, like, it's such bullshit. Like, I know we had a bit of fun, and we had a bit of fun at his expense, but I'll give us credit here. Like we said at the time, like, what difference does it make how he handled the press conference? He's not there for his ability to deliver on the microphone. It'll come from the inside out, and he's built a locker room culture there, and he's accommodated differences with players, and he's come through the well, is the Brian Thomas Jr. thing working with Trevor Lawrence? Is Trevor Lawrence his guy? He's worked with what he has there, and he has them all. Like, you could hear how fired up they were after the game, talking about the bandwagon and talking about how they don't need anybody jumping on the bandwagon now, and nobody who wasn't believing in them before is welcome. And right, it's chippy and it's, you know, the usual kind of bulletin board material, but they're using it in the right way. And like, these things are just, they're such fallacious narratives, really. Like, oh, he couldn't sing the Duval song. That's not why they hired him.
I think there's two things that right now are a huge factor for the Jags. And we spoke about it a few weeks ago, and people were kind of throwing their eyes at the time, was the fact that they struggled to beat the Raiders and it took overtime, and they struggled to beat the Cardinals and it went overtime. And we said on the show those Mondays, was they're not pretty victories against teams that are, you know, lagging down the further end of the tables in terms of the league. Those type of results come back to help the team. They understand the nature of these, you know, tight games when they come up against bigger and better teams, and they find ways to win. I also think he's probably taken this week in particular, where everybody's been lauding up the Broncos. We said it on Thursday, and I selected the Jags to win because everybody was assuming it was going to be the Packers that were going to take care of the Broncos and, you know, and down them with a loss. And I said, no, this Jags team are probably better prepared to go in there. You referred to a small market team. Sean Payton's come out with some, you know, chippy comments after. There's a few comments during the week. All of that would have just led to this game. But they were so dominant. Like, I know it's a 14-point score, but for me, this was one of the most dominant performances of the season. Bear in mind how good the Broncos have been at home. I mean, the game, the Broncos never really got anything going throughout the course of the game. And Trevor Lawrence, for me, he's not MVP. We know he won't be, but he's really put himself in the last 4 or 5 weeks in the window where people are saying, okay, that's the quarterback that they drafted. That's the quarterback they want to build this team around.
Now, the Broncos, Kieran, and having picked the Broncos to win this game, I have to eat a certain amount of humble pie in this one myself. But the manner of their defeat here was significant, I thought, because the player that's been under the most spotlight, obviously, is Bo Nix, and the offense has been underwhelming, and they've only just gotten over the line against the Raiders and in many other games where they've relied on the bounce of the ball here, and they've relied on that orange rush defense, that phenomenal pass rush to get them over the line. It's the fact that their defense got taken apart would give you serious cause for concern, because this does not look like a team that is built to go deep in the playoffs.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, again, I picked the Broncos too. I thought they were primed to take this Jags team apart. I didn't believe in the Jags. I hadn't seen enough, in my opinion. You know, wins over the Jets and a beaten up Colts team had not convinced me that they were able to go into Denver and do what they did. But yeah, you're right. I mean, this is a team that's eked out wins all season. We talked about they were the Chiefs of 2025, where they were winning games late and holding on to leads and just relying on that incredible defense. But you're right, there has been holes in them. I mean, they've given up 20 plus points to Washington. They've given up to the Raiders. So it's not been airtight, and it's not been,
They kind of remind me of the Ravens a little bit of the past couple of seasons, which is when they're on the front foot, when they're getting home to the quarterback, when they're playing with the lead, they look nasty. The first time they get punched in the nose, they don't know what to do.
Yeah, and they haven't been putting massive amount of points on the board. I mean, they squeaked past the Jets in Wembley, but they've been doing enough to get by. And with that defense, I mean, it's really been, you give us 12, 14 points and we'll win the game for you. And they have been, when they've taken the lead, which is pretty much every game, they've taken the lead and they've held on. And they haven't really been tested to the extent they were yesterday by this Jags team. I mean, yeah, we know the Broncos record. They've been unbeaten for so long, and they've had an 11-game win streak, unbeaten at home since last year. But I mean, they haven't come up against a team that's, I mean, I was stunned. I have to admit, I've watched the Jags live and I watched them dismantle the Colts, but I still didn't think that they could go into Denver and put a beat down like they did. I mean, that was true B2A yesterday. That was real belt to ass. And they just did not give them a chance at all to it was a 14 point margin, but we all know that it was a much bigger win than that. I mean, they just looked all aspects of that. I was talking to a couple of people at work today, friends of mine, Jags fans, and they're just over the moon. I mean, they're saying that they're going to go all the way, and who's going to argue with that right now, because they're playing great on all aspects. I mean, Parker Washington, a kid who comes in from Penn State, who, unless you're a real Jags fan, you don't know, let alone what he looks like, but what his play style is like. But I mean, he lit it up yesterday. I mean, Lawrence looked
He
phenomenal.
did a phenomenal catch on any weekend
Yeah.
where Kenneth Gainwell didn't do what he did for the Steelers. You would have said that was the play of the weekend.
Yeah, and on defense, they're making plays again. Their defense, Campanelli's got them playing incredibly. Adinsky, I mean, him and Spencer Whipple, the quarterback's coach, are doing something with Lawrence, and they have turned him into a guy. I mean, I've seen plenty of Jags games over the last couple of years. Maybe it was PTSD, or maybe it was just a reminder of how bad they've been over the last whatever number of years Lawrence has been there, 4 or 5. That you just expect them to, just go back to the regular broadcast and just be terrible and turn the ball over like we've seen them, in the last couple of seasons. Fumble the ball, turn it over, throw head-scratching picks, but he looks incredible out there. He looks poised. He's everywhere he's throwing the ball. It's landing to a receiver. He's handing the ball off at the right times to ETN. I thought that the run game might suffer a little bit with Tootin being out. They didn't miss a beat. And you got to remember they're doing. Brian Thomas Jr. only had 18 yards in the game, and they're doing a lot of this pretty much all season without their second pick in the draft, Travis Hunter. I mean, that's another thing that's forgotten about too.
They've actually kind of improved since they lost Travis, and that's purely coincidental. I'm not implying that there's a causal link there, but that seemed to be a bit of a downer at the time. But that's kind of coincided with the team taking liftoff.
Well, yeah, and it's been since the bye week, and I heard over the course of the week that that Cohen and Lawrence had watched every single interception that the Broncos have had all season, and they've examined. I mean, gone through with a.
I thought you were going to say they sat down and watched every Pitch Perfect movie together and bonded. Who doesn't love Pitch Perfect?
Pitch Perfect, yeah. They went through every single interception, where the ball was coming from, who's throwing it, all the dynamics, and taking it apart. And they've been doing their homework, and it really shows. Cohen, I have to say, I thought that relationship was fractured when we saw Cohen, yelling at him about throwing the ball at the numbers. Yeah. When Lawrence wasn't exactly lighting the world on fire, but something changed over the last couple of weeks, and this Jags team is just humming. I mean, Jags have gone 4-5 in the red zone yesterday, against the league's best red zone D, and Lawrence had 4 touchdowns. Jags win 6 straight. Who's to say they're not going to run the table? I mean, they only have they have next week. They have. I'm trying to remember. I know they have the Titans the last game.
You got the Colts next weekend.
Colts next week. Yeah, there you go. I mean, they're probably going to run the table. They'll probably be resting Lawrence for the Titans game. But I mean, right now they've outscored opponents 171-72 in the last 5 weeks. That says it all right there. They're playing outstanding ball, and it'll be great to see them in the playoffs. I'll be excited about going to a playoff game up in Jacksonville.
Yes,
and we'll see where the story ends. But it's a great story right now, and hopefully the Jags keep it rolling.
I love that for you. I love the idea of a playoff game in Jacksonville, and we're rooting for that one for you, as well as for the Jags themselves. If Lawrence and Cohen are thinking of having a watch party over Christmas, they should sit down and watch Click and Collect, an underrated modern Christmas classic with Stephen Merchant, another tall, misunderstood man like Trevor Lawrence with a heart of gold who comes good.
I thought you were going to say,
Brian, a quick point on.
I thought you were going to say like yourself, Connor.
Well, that was the illusion, Brian. I was leaving that unsaid. It was an elegant one for the audience to figure out themselves. But thank you for putting that fish on the table. You had a point on Trevor before we move on.
No problem. Yeah, the Chiefs game on that Monday night where they came back and he scored the winning touchdown. I think that was the game. I know the Chiefs season's been disappointing, but still at the time, the nature of the comeback where we've been there before and the Chiefs eke out these victories. They came back from double-digit deficit in that game. He scores the winning touchdown. I know he'd had some kind of underrated games since then, but again, like we were waiting for that game that was like where he has the confidence to say, right, I can actually go and win these type of games in prime time. I know he had the big playoff comeback a couple years ago, but a lot of people would suggest that was very much down to an implosion by the Chargers as opposed to the Jags coming back. But when you see him winning those games against that start of that part of the season, you think Cohen is saying, right, we've beaten the team that just represent the AFC. There's no reason why we can't beat everyone else. And as you said, this is a most wide open season. Even Jim Nantz refers to it last night. It's the most flaky season you could ever remember. So why not? Why not the Jags?
We'll take a quick break.
Great odds. Great odds. You're in control. You always bet responsibly. And you're not afraid to choose alternatives. That's why you bet with QuinnBet. Build your own unique football bets with Create a Bet. Winning team, first goal scorer, number of goals, the possibilities are endless. And with a 4-star Trustpilot customer service rating, why not give QuinnBet a shot? QuinnBet, We bet you love it.
Kieran, for a team that have struggled throughout the season and have really been among the back markers since we kicked off in September, the Raiders do have a funny habit of making it tough for contenders to actually emerge with a victory. And they brought the Texans into a bit of a death struggle last night, from which Houston were lucky enough in the end to emerge. And thanks to their two biggest playmakers on offense and on defense, CJ Stroud and Derek Stingley Jr., they managed to do that, but it wasn't hugely convincing.
No, and it's funny, we just talked about the Jags and how much the Jags struggled in that game in Vegas about a month and change ago. I mean, yeah, they've played some teams hard. It's a strange story right now in Vegas, because you've got a great running back in Jeanty, and he showed what he can do when he's given the opportunity yesterday. Desperate quarterback situation that's going to get resolved in April. And then you got a coach who is more than likely going to be one and done, because it's just been a miserable season. Offensive wise, I mean, I think I saw a stat, they hadn't scored more than 17 points in, I think not all season, but in quite a while anyway. I mean, they've been putrid on offense. They've just been hanging their hat on Max Crosby and highlight plays from him. But I mean, listen, it's that time of the year where players are playing. I've said it before, players are playing for a contract. They're putting themselves in the shop window for a team for next year. And Geno, I think we can agree that Geno won't be the quarterback in Vegas next year. So it's really, it's players just trying to play out and show out and just show, listen, I know the season's done. We're not a great team, but we can still perform, and we can still put on a performance and put it up to some of the bigger players. And, I certainly didn't think the Texans were going to lose that game, but I mean, you can never tell with this league, a couple of drop of a ball or an interception, and who knows what can happen. But despite Jeanty's, really great performance, I mean, he had 128 in the ground and 60 in the air for 2 touchdowns. I mean, that was the offense for the Raiders, and they kept it going. But the story is, the Texans were able to hold on. They've been in so many close games, especially the start of the season, and it would have been a heartbreaker for them to have lost that and lose complete ground with the Jaguars. And as it is, they're just a game behind. So it was a positive outcome. I know Will Anderson wasn't happy about it last night. They were looking for a more fluid performance and something to, kind of get the crowd more enthused or more excited. But again, we say it all the time. Everyone says it all the time. It's hard to get a win in the National Football League, and it's hard to grind out wins, and especially when it's expected of you. And that it could have been classed as a trap game. Even when it's expected of you, it's hard to get those W's. But the Texans did what they had to do. They clawed out a win. Stroud did it. Stroud did what he had to do. The defense stepped up. They had a huge amount of tackles. Bullock had 9 tackles. Kamari Lassiter at 8. And obviously Petrie throws in his usual 6-7 tackles. But I mean, the story is the Texans did what they had to do. They've got to keep pace with this Jaguars team, because who knows what can happen down the stretch. But I mean, the Raiders kept fighting. I'll give them credit for that. The defense didn't really cover themselves in glory, but it's a game that kind of everyone got reminded, oh yeah, Jeanty was a top pick in this draft. He was a phenomenal running back at Boise State. He's got the ability. Give him a decent line. Give him a quarterback who can help him. And this is what he can do. So it's a season. It's been a tough season, and we talk about Cam Ward having tough seasons. They're only going to get better through adversity. It's been a really tough season for Jeanty, but he's going to be all the better for what he's gone through this year. He's going to come out of next year with a better quarterback. I don't want to say a better coach, but he's going to have a different coach. He's going to have different positional coaches. He's going to have a much, much different roster surrounding him. So, he's still reminding the league that, I was a top pick in the draft and I'm able to do these things, because pass catching running backs are a huge commodity in this league also. So Texans eke out the win. Raiders, we know they're not great, but they didn't cover themselves in shame yesterday.
Brian, I kind of get the impression that D'Amico Ryans and the coaching staff in Houston won't actually be particularly displeased at this, because you come out with the win. As we said, the Raiders had this ability to be kind of awkward, even though they ultimately roll over at the end and die. And you're 10-5. You're tucked in nicely in both your divisional race and in the playoff race. And I'm looking at the other teams around them in the AFC, and I've kind of made this point or alluded to it over the past couple of weeks. I'm seeing an emergent Jags team, an emergent Patriots team, an emergent Broncos team, but I'm also looking at a Texans team that has been to the playoffs the last 2 seasons and has won playoff games the last 2 seasons. and who are trending in the right direction at just the right time with all of the pieces on the board if they can play them in the right way.
Yeah, if we're gonna load it up to the Jags for winning these tight games and put themselves in a better position, isn't it the same team, a different team in the same division? Like they've come out the right side of it, a really tough game. I thought their offense yesterday was stuttering throughout the course of the game. Only one touchdown late in the game. Bear in mind there was a pick six by Gino. I mean the Raiders did everything to help them win that game. But yeah, like they've come out they've found the way to win, Conor, when they haven't played well. But you touched on a couple of weeks ago. You're looking at all the defenses in the AFC, and in which defense right now would you would you trust the most to go into the playoffs and deliver these wins? And in a year where some of these teams going into the playoffs won't have a lot of experience, maybe it is the Texans that are floating under the radar that can go and win these games. You touched on it there. Wildcard victories the last 2 years at home, giving the Chiefs everything they can think about in the divisional round game. And they're going to look at this and say, okay, this is the model. And Kieran was at this stage last year where he said, right, this Texans team are ready to go all the way. Maybe we're a year removed from that. Maybe this is the year. But yeah, like playoff experience is huge. When you get into these games, you know, we all know the minute you watch a playoff game, you go, okay, this doesn't feel like regular season football. The enormity of this is huge. Even the wildcard round are special with so many games. And the Texans right now, I think it's key.
And I watch teams that succeed through explosive plays during the season. They're spectacular highlight reel teams. And I'm just shaking my head going, that doesn't happen in the playoffs. The teams that emerge are the teams that know how to get down and wrestle in the mud, that get into the death struggle and emerge the right side of it. And the Texans look like that kind of team.
Well, how often do we look at the playoff games and we look at the lines that are affected by QuinnBet and we say, okay, there's 2 or 3 points in every game. You're getting these games that are going to go right down to the wire. No teams. It's very rare we see blowout games, and throughout the playoffs, every game is always nip and tuck. Texans, for me, I feel they need to win the division. I feel they need to get that playoff game at home. I'll be interested to see what comes of a wild card game where they have to go on the road, because we haven't seen that the last couple of years. This weekend feels like a real playoff type of game because there's so much on the line. It's a Saturday night primetime game, 9:30 Irish time, where they go into SoFi against a Chargers team that have come off another huge victory. This is a real kind of testing point for them this weekend. Can they go on the road and win this game?
Our final talking point of the weekend was one of the earlier games in the weekend. And Kieran, I had watched, as we all did, Rams Seahawks on Thursday night and thought, wow, that's going to be the game of the season. Like, we're not topping that until we get to the playoffs. And within 48 hours, we saw a game that, if in its entirety might not have been as good, the conclusion was as crazy as you're going to see. And an epic struggle between the Bears and the Packers ends up with the Bears pulling out a walk-off touchdown in overtime to send the Soldier Field crowd wild and ultimately send the Bears to the playoffs, courtesy of a victory by none other than Aaron Rodgers on Sunday night. How sweet is that for Bears fans? The man who once proclaimed himself the owner of the Chicago Bears ultimately is the man who sends them to the playoffs. A crazy, crazy game in the NFC North. It looked like a playoff game. And at this time of the season, for both of these teams now, every game is a playoff game.
Yeah, definitely had the feel of a playoff game. Classic Chicago windy game. I mean, there's debris flying all over the place. Just classic NFC North football. Tight margins, field goal here and there, and it didn't look great for the Bears. I mean, the Packers. I mean, we'll give them credit. I mean, they stayed with it and they looked. I don't want to say in the ascendancy, but they probably looked. Definitely the first 3 quarters definitely looked like the team that was more likely to win it. Great spectacle, though. I mean, it was just. I mean, that's the football we love. That's the atmosphere. That's the environment. That's the style of play. That is just. It's just dirty. It's just gritty. It's teams grinding out. It's not always spectacular, but it's teams grinding out yards. They're just hammering out yards and just doing what they got to do. I'm going to put my fandom aside for a moment here, because there'll be plenty of time for me to get giddy about the Bears and their first playoff appearance in 5 years. But if Caleb Williams had taken a lick like that, a helmet-to-helmet shot from a Packers defender, I would not be happy. Like that is a terrible hit by Austin Booker and Jordan Love that puts him out of the game. We do not want to see the game's best players, or any players indeed, put in that position. I mean, that could have had a really, really bad ending for Jordan Love. It's not good. And I heard a Packers defender, I can't remember who it was, complaining after the game, saying, so you can get thrown out of a game for taunting twice. You can have 2 unnecessary roughness penalties and just keep going. That was Booker's second 15-yard penalty. And that's all right. You can
argue mitigation, and maybe Jordan Love's head is dipping and you're getting into the rugby yellow card, red card territory here. But helmet to helmet hits have just got to be taken seriously by the NFL, and they've got to be officiated properly. And granted, this one worked out in the favor of the Bears, but that doesn't make it right. And if it was the other way around, I'd be just as annoyed about it if I was a Packers fan.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a huge problem across the board. I mean, it's a huge problem with Pee Wee football, with Pop Warner, up to middle school, up to high school. I mean, it's unfortunately a part of it.
I don't want my kid playing a sport if that's the kind of hit that they're going to take, if that's not being officiated properly.
Yeah. Well, what I will say is I have seen it in high school ball. It's been officiated properly, but I mean, again, we talked at the start of the program. We talked about consistency of referees and decision making. I mean, until it's eradicated from the game, and we see it in college a lot with targeting. They're making calls on this all the time, whether it's uppercuts or whether it's helmet to helmet. It's got to be taken out of the game, and it's going to be a generational thing. But I mean, it's going to take time. But it's the consistency of the officiating that's really going to be the.
But they did it with the hip drop. I mean, and that's a more difficult tackle to officiate, and it's gone. When was the last time you saw a player even attempt something like that?
Yeah, I mean that's there was a little bit of that at the start of the season, but you're right. It's slowly kind of disappeared. I mean, it's just the nature of the speed of the game that helmet to helmet. Unfortunately, it's gonna happen from time to time. It's lucky that Love was able to walk off in his own strength, and it's also quite fortunate the Packers have somebody like Malik Willis who can come in and I don't want to say miss a beat, but he's more than I mean, you look around the league at backup quarterbacks. I mean, you would take Malik Willis over probably 75% of the league's backup quarterbacks. He came in, he's dynamic.
And interestingly, like a lot of teams try and go for a backup quarterback that plays in a similar style and that they can just run the same offense with. Malik Willis gives them something completely different. And actually, the Bears really struggled with him for most of the rest of the game. They didn't know how to deal with him as a runner. He was dropping dimes in the passing game as well. He really was threatening, and it was working well for the Packers.
Yeah, and I think his calling card, he's probably more known for his speed. And, he was mobile as hell in this game, and he was getting out of tight corners all the time. But they trust him, and he showed up. I mean, that throw to Dobbs was about as good as you can do. And he did what, he almost got him over the line. But the real story is obviously what happened in the last 2 minutes of that game. I mean, it's just that's the football we love to watch. That's the drama we love to watch. And it's funny, the local guy, Cairo Santos, who went to school just up the road, they have the football stadium is named after him. It's funny how he was just, and I'm sure you were probably tearing your hair out right before the 2-minute warning, how he was just leisurely just strolling around, just almost like picking up grass and throwing it in the air just to see where the wind was blowing. I'm sure Bears fans were losing their mind watching him with that. But nobody, I mean, I think the stat is what the Packers had a 99% chance to win the game at that stage. I mean, it right at that juncture, right after that field goal was kicked, it just went bananas. I mean, onside kicks, fumbles by Willis, the throw to Jonte Walker. Jade Walker, who nobody knew about, a third string.
It's the Juby slide as well. He had the celebration for the moment too.
I know, right? I mean, it's a third string wide receiver that, I'm sure that Brady was looking at his notes saying, who's this guy? I mean, it had everything. It really did. It was a great finish to the game. Can
for me as well on that point, and he's gotten a lot of incoming fire in this show. Tom Brady called a great game.
Oh yeah,
that was one of the best games of Brady's career. Like he took us inside the huddle there in a way that only he can, and it's frustrating because he doesn't do it often enough.
Right, and his color commentator, the main commentator, Kevin Burkhardt. I mean, he's a great. I mean, he's just been getting better and better, and the two of them are a great partnership. He used to be a Met broadcaster back in the day, and he's transferred into being a phenomenal play-by-play guy. But the game just took off after that. It was a great spectacle, and we know what happened afterwards. Caleb, and the other story is Caleb Williams, again, somebody who I've doubted was able to turn it up. But ever since that Eagles game, or just basically around that time of Thanksgiving, ever since then, I mean, he's been everything you could possibly want. He's protecting the ball. He's not. You can talk about his accuracy from time to time, but I mean, that throw to DJ Moore right at the end, I mean, that was as good. I was showing the throw to my son. I was like, that's as good of an overhead or an overhand, catch that you can make. I mean, it was just a perfect dot, especially in those
credit Keyshawn Nixon on the coverage. Like, you cannot cover a player better than Keyshawn Nixon.
He did a better job on that
play. It was A1.
He did a better job than covering Walker for the initial touchdown. That's for sure.
There's a miscommunication on that one,
Yeah.
but like, you know, and I think it was Burkhardt who had dropped the old Dan Marino line earlier on in the game. You can't cover a perfect throw.
Yeah,
It was
and
a perfect throw.
It was a perfect throw. I mean, in you got to remember in those windy conditions, we saw earlier in the game when Jordan Love threw a ball into the end zone, how the ball just
Sailed right. Yeah.
it just fantailed away. We saw kicks going to the right, and the fact that I mean, it was a dot. It was an absolute dot. Thrown in those conditions, phenomenal. And I'll have to give a lot of praise, a lot of props to Williams. I know he struggled early part of the season. You know more than anybody, but just like Lawrence has been coming along, and it just shows you. And again, this could be a conversation. This could be a whole separate conversation. Coaching and culture wins, and I don't care what your team is like or what your roster is like.
Yeah,
coaching and culture wins. We've seen the job that Johnson has done. We've seen the job that Cohen has done.
I'm going to underline that point with the Dennis Allen hire as well. Dennis Allen, you know, obviously lost his head coaching job in New Orleans. The thing that has impressed me most as a Bears fan this year is looking at players like C.J. Gardner-Johnson, as you say, Jahdae Walker, DeMarco Jackson, Nahshon Wright, who is the NFL's interception leader this season. These are guys who were dropped elsewhere. Jahdae Walker was an undrafted rookie free agent. Guys that were picked up in mid-season, guys that were filling gaps because players went down injured. When those kind of players come in and contribute, that tells you something about the culture in the locker room. This is a place where players want to play. This is a place where 2 years ago, Caleb Williams didn't even want to play and was open about the fact that he wanted to go to Minnesota, didn't want to be drafted by Chicago. And it's taken the right coaching hire and the right coaching hires to get there, which, you know, is a template for a lot of teams. We could talk about the Giants in the off season. You know, you got to kiss a lot of frogs to find the prince. But Brian, the permutations that open up from here in the NFC North are now fascinating. We mentioned it a little bit earlier about how the Lions are still mathematically in with a chance, but it's really difficult for them. The Bears and Packers now look set on a collision course here. We could get round 3 because it's unlikely, but the Bears could still clinch the number 1 overall seed if results go their way and if they win out. But the most likely scenario is the Bears win the NFC North and finish in the 2 seed, and the Packers finish in the 7 seed, and the two of them end up playing on wildcard weekend. And I think probably most of us would sign up for part 3 of this, the way it's been going so far.
The neutral certainly will, Conor. Yeah, I think ultimately you touched on earlier on.
I don't know if I can survive it, and I need to apologise to my neighbours for the shouting at ungodly hours of the morning.
Well, it's a fierce rivalry between two storied franchises. I'm saying all the right words in advance of a potential game. Like, this is the game we all want to see it again. I don't know whether necessarily you want to see it again, because it's not good for you. It's not good for Kieran O'Donovan, who's not here to see. He's probably on life support at this stage after. Like, I had 4 minute audio clips from him yesterday, or WhatsApp notes about how the game was won and lost for the Bears and Packers. Yeah, look, if you're assuming that the 49ers are going to take care of the Bears next weekend in that case, and I don't think that's even a foregone conclusion. I think Quinn have the line reflective of 2.5 points. Straight away, that strikes me as, okay, they don't know where this one's going to go. And why can't the Bears?
Yeah, but the realist in me says that the Bears beat the Steelers when Mason Rudolph was filling in a quarterback. They had Jordan Love out for 2 quarters yesterday. They hit the Eagles at just about the right time. They have gotten plenty of breaks along the way here, and a lot of things have gone in their favor. And I know that every question that they've been asked, they've somehow managed to come up with an answer. But an onside kick, 8% chance of recovery. They've been pulling up the right numbers all the time, and maybe they've earned their luck because of the crappy luck they've had in recent season. But at a certain point, that runs out, and we've been saying it every single week.
Yeah, like everyone's been. Look, we've spoken about the touchdown, but like it was a 4th down play as well. People are forgetting that it was essentially the last play of the game, and it felt like a bit of a Hail Mary because Caleb Williams was scrambling. Okay, miscommunication on the back end by the Packers secondary, but again, it felt like he had no choice to put the throw up, and everybody's just assuming this is the end of the game, and they come down with it. So the fact that they were able to put themselves in the position to score after getting the ball back, like there's all the work was still had to be done in order to get the game into overtime. And even in overtime, it looked like it was going to go the way of the Packers for a certain period of time. Just topsy-turvy game. They played each other so tight over the course of the last 2 weeks that we, and I say we, I mean me and Kieran and Bobby Woodard, would love to see it again. But I'm not entirely sure it's going to be.
You and I had this conversation, and they're vastly different players, particularly athletically. But Caleb Williams does have something of that funny Eli Manning about him. It seems like the more pressurized the spot, the more he wants it. Like, he has the coldest blood running through his veins. If you heard the Bears caller on the radio shot, he said, "The Iceman cometh and the Iceman taketh."
He's just doing things right now that just remind me of Eli Manning back in the day. And even we alluded to it yesterday morning when we were discussing, there was a game, and Kieran will remember it well, where the Giants went into overtime in Philadelphia, and at that stage the league rules were first team gets the ball, first team scores, game over. And he went with that back of the shoulder throw in, Plaxico Burress brings it in, and it was striking that the plays were so similar. And that was a walk-off touchdown victory. Like, most teams are kind of saying, right, let's get the play calling in place to get ourselves in a position to kick a field goal. Never mind having the balls to go and actually call a play of that magnitude, because that could have went very differently. He's talking about Nixon, sublime coverage, and yeah, it's a perfect throw. He could have easily found a way to navigate that as an interception, and then all of a sudden things are very different. But it's more the trust element, and I love Kelly Williams' press conference after where he says this is the best coaching staff I've ever been around, and it strikes me as they trust him, he trusts the head coach. That's the play call. We're going to make it happen, make it work. I think the Bears are a serious threat in the NFC. I know you don't want to hear it because you're trying to keep your feet on the ground, but right now the way they're playing, it's a bit the momentum as well. They're building that momentum, Conor. They're now winning these games. Years ago, you said the Bears don't win these type of games. The Bears always come out the wrong side of these games. Well, now they're winning it. 2 weeks on from when they lost a really difficult one in Ambo, when it looked like the game was gone, to pull that out. It's monumental the way the things.
And as you say, it sets up a brilliant clash at Santa Clara when the Bears go to the 49ers with both of those teams with number 1 seed aspirations, as we've been saying. We'll get to all those Week 17 games when we have our live preview show on Thursday. Are we on Thursday? Christmas week schedule. I'll need to double check that one. But
no, we don't do anything Christmas Day, Conor. Even that day is no. I think it's going to be. Saturday morning podcast format.
Yes,
previewing the weekend.
Of course it will. Yeah. The heathen in me forgetting momentarily that Thursday is in fact, of course, Christmas Day. Whatever you're doing that way, I hope you get to spend it with your loved ones and enjoy a well-earned break, as we will too. And we'll be back with you with those Week 17 picks on the Irish NFL Show.